Hello, everyone, and welcome to our recycling panel today. Really exciting energy in the room. Ooh, it's gone quiet now.
Yeah.
Silent disco. Fantastic. So I'm Cyndi Rhoades, and I'm moderating the panel today called Diverse Recycling Avenues Powering Circularity. We have an incredible group of innovators, and Dana's going to be joining us in a minute, and industry leaders with a whole raft of experience and expertise. And looking forward to getting into conversation with them as well as Q&A. I'm sure there's a lot of knowledge in the room here today as well. So before we begin, we'll start with some introductions. I'm Cyndi Rhoades, Worn Again Technologies founder, and also more recently, a company called Circularity Textile Ecosystems in the UK. So the first company is looking at bringing fiber-to-fiber recycling to the UK. And the second company is all about evolving the end-of-use post-consumer textile supply chain to advance feedstock and supply feedstock into mechanical and chemical recycling technologies. So we're going to talk a lot about that today. But I'd like to hand it over to our panelists to introduce themselves. Annabelle, we can start with you.
Thank you, Cyndi. I'm like in a little bit of a haze, and hey, Dana. um, we're matching today. It's very, very nice. My name is Annabelle. I am the managing director of Säntis Textiles Switzerland, which sounds a lot more fancy than what it is. But basically, I work with my father on our 100% recycled cotton, which in the beginning was just fabrics and yarns. We were supplying that, or we're producing and supplying that. And now, actually, as of I think it's now been 3 weeks, we released our machine, our own recycling machine into the industry, which is the only machine in the world that can recycle textile to textile and achieve a 26 millimeter fiber length, which is very, very innovative, a big feat. Again, I don't take the credit for that, though. It's all my father that built it, but I'm basically helping him to promote this technology and the fabrics and the yarns, and I have lovely clients such as Dana.
We're going to
talk
go
about
into,
that.
absolutely, we're going to go into more detail on the company and what you can do. And I'm going to mix it up and jump to Dana now.
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes?
Very well.
Oh, lovely. It's so nice to see you all. I wish I was there in person. And thank you for having me join you. So I am Dana Davis from Mara Hoffmann. My role is I wear many hats, but VP of Sustainability, Product, and Business Strategy. Mara Hoffmann is a privately held contemporary fashion brand. We're based out of New York with global distribution. And just a little bit of context, because I think it's important, and I'm not sure those in the audience who know the brand, but so we're a 23-year-old brand, and 15 years into the brand is when we kind of call it the aha moment. So Mara Hoffmann, the founder, president, and creative director, she came to me and with this, literal tears in her eyes, overwhelming sense of knowing that things needed to change. And she said to me, Dana, I need you to either figure out how we can start prioritizing the people and the planet in this business, or we need to shut it down. I looked at her and I said, we're not going to shut this business down. We can do it. So 9 years ago in 2015, that was when this journey really started. And as we all know, it's a tricky one, right? Because once you start down this road, you realize it's unending. Every action that we are taking is to decrease our negative impact. And all of that still does come with a challenge. So it's important for us to, and in the context of this conversation, the first thing that we did was materials. And I'm excited to be able to talk to you about how we've been able to prioritize recycled materials and what that relationship with Säntis has looked like over the past few years. So thanks.
Thanks, Dana. And I'm sure you have 1,000,001 stories to share, which we won't have time for today, but we'll try and dig into some good ones there. Eric, I'll hand it over to you next.
Yes, hi everybody. I'm Eric Firmann and I'm one of the co-founders of Redown. You could just see before we started a short video presenting what we do. So we recycle down and feathers that we extract and reprocess from post-consumer waste. So down jackets, old duvets, pillows that we collect all over Europe, but now more recently also all over China. And the down gets extracted, washed, sterilized, sorted to the right quality grade so that it can be reused as a new filling material in new jackets or new bedding products. But next to that, we really consider ourselves more as a waste management company more than a down trading company. We really focus on our zero waste policy to take care of all the different components that we collect, meaning the fabrics, the trims, and of course all type of the filling materials, not only the high-end down, which could be considered as the cream and the more valuable part of our business. So that's really what makes Redown quite unique in that industry, is this zero waste policy and the way we handle all the different components.
Fantastic. And that we will be getting into more detail on as well.
Sure.
Thank you. And over to you, Shailja.
Hi, I'm Shailja Dubé, and I'm part of the British Fashion Council. I lead our Institute of Positive Fashion program there. So I guess there's a couple of things there, because I'm sure not everybody's familiar with either of those terms, but the British Fashion Council is the industry body for designer businesses in the UK, and we lobby government on behalf of the industry to affect change, and we really champion innovation, champion our British designers on a global stage and that creativity that we have in the UK. So we own London Fashion Week and the Fashion Awards, and similar journeys to everybody. We came to a point in what we were doing and really understood the impacts that our industry is having on the environment and society. So the Institute of Positive Fashion program was set up as a way to look at wider industry change. And within that role, I direct our Circular Fashion Ecosystem Project, which is our flagship program of work, where we are trying to drive the industry forward to a circular economy in the UK wholesale.
Fantastic. So we have a really good mix here of brands, recyclers, industry bodies, which is great. And Annabelle and Eric both have stalls somewhere around here where you can come and talk to them and touch and feel some of the products and the outputs. So that would be great. So I'd like to start by diving into the variety of recycling solutions that exist today and how they can vary quite significantly. You know, we hear a lot about the pros and cons of mechanical and chemical recycling, but of course this is going to depend a lot on what fiber we're talking about,
Sure.
what material we're talking about. Some have been around for decades, others are quite brand new. And with Eric, personally I'm more familiar with the whole cotton, polyester, because it's those are the two highest used fibers. I'm a lot more aware of those supply chains and what's happening in recycling today and what needs to happen. But I'm really fascinated to learn about the down whole recycling system. So could you give us a University 101 crash course on the down ecosystem?
Sure, I will try at least. No, actually, of course, down is an important product in the textile industry, because it gets used into apparel, but also bedding products, as I said. And the recycling of down is, I think, as old as the usage of down itself. Because even in the old days when farmers were using the first down for their own duvets and sleeping products, when these were getting a little bit old, too flat, or the fabric was destroyed, they took the down out, washed it themselves, added maybe sometimes some new one in it, and reused it into new shells. Because down is a pretty valuable, expensive product, and this even was a quite strong industry till I will say 1980s, when actually we got more import of down from Asia that made actually the recycling or the reprocessing of used down not so economically interesting anymore. But basically we didn't invent the down recycling when we started Redown in 2015. But what we did, we really improved it and made it traceable. That was really what we focused on. So how do we do it today? As I said, we collect post-consumer waste filled with down and feathers all over Europe for our Hungarian plant and all over China for our Chinese factory. In Europe, the goods are collected through the street containers by the companies who operate those containers. As you know, they separate the goods in many different categories, jeans with jeans, t-shirts with t-shirts, and we ask them for the down and feather-filled items. And we buy those products in bulk from them. The products are, for the bedding products, categorized first from our team, meaning that we don't mix everything together. Some products are really only filled with feathers, like pillows, for example, and some others have a higher content of down. I hope everybody knows the difference when I say that between down and feathers. So basically, just very quickly, as it's a short introduction, down is what the birds have next to skin as a thermal protection. The feathers, as what you all know, as a central bone and the fibers around that are meant for the birds to fly or to protect them from rain and so on. Feathers in our industry are more used for the, how could I say, the elasticity, the recovery of cushions, you know, and down is a thermal protective filling material. So we don't mix all this because what we resell is actually always after the purpose of how it's going to be reused. So the high-end down content products go back into down jackets or high-end duvets, and the feathers are going more into decoration, inner cushions or sleeping pillows and so on. So we categorize the product, then we extract the filling material, and it goes into sorting machines where we eliminate all, I would say, the unwanted so-called dead materials, broken feathers, down fibers, and so on. Then the sorted material is washed and sterilized. That's a very important point when it comes to recycled material, is, of course, compared to virgin material, we have different challenges. Cleanliness, but also contamination from chemicals coming from the previous treatment of the product. All of that are specific challenges to recycled materials. So we really make sure at Redown that the recycled down that is going to be reused reaches the highest cleanliness standard on the market. And that's an important point for, of course, the sanitary safety of the consumers, but also for their perception. Because I don't know if you have the same challenges with cotton, but when it comes to down, people are really wondering sometimes if what we resell for reuse is clean. You know, it comes from bedding products. It's, you know, is that really something that is safe for me? So that's why we put a big focus on the cleanliness. And then, of course, along that process, we have different steps of quality control because redown is sold exactly like virgin down after the same specs. You know, we define the down and feather content, the fill power, that is, I would say, quickly the ratio that indicates the thermal performance of the material, and there are also some specs to define the cleanliness. So all those are actually controlled at different steps of the process and of course at the end.
Wow. I just learned so much about down that I did not know. So, yeah, thank you for that. And so, how has the market responded? You said in the 80s when it just shifted. Is it starting to come back to this idea of how we were doing it before? And as part of that, what is your approach to scaling? Is it scalable very quickly? I mean, related to the market
Sure.
demands.
So if we go back to the 80s, I would say the perspective and the target was totally different from what we do today. In that time, again, down is a valuable product. The entire focus was economical. I mean, how can we keep the value of the product as long as possible? Today, our approach is more about circularity. How do we use more existing resources instead of always creating new ones, you know? But when we started Redown, I think we had pretty quickly some good response. You know, we started, as I said, in 2015, almost at the same time when Textile Exchange launched the RDS certification, which is the responsible down standard, a traceability standard related to virgin down. So I would say sustainability in the down world was really in the heart of the topic. Of course, we were a little bit taking that sustainability vision under another angle, because RDS is all about animal welfare, making sure that from the egg to the down jacket, everything is done in the best possible way for the birds. Redown takes it, as I say, from a circularity perspective, and we say, okay, we have a bunch of trash here. How can we actually reuse this in the best possible way? And so I would say the spirit from the market was there. We were just in conflict a little bit with RDS to see, okay, what is the best? But now, step by step, we see that there is no conflict, but there is more a kind of complementarity. With Redown, we cannot achieve all the qualities that virgin down can offer. For example, premium goose down gets much higher in fill power than what we can do because we only use post-consumer waste as raw material. We don't blend with new product. That's also, you know, what Annabelle is trying to do with 100% recycled base material, you know.
And that's a fantastic segue because I want to move from down to cotton. And Annabelle, you were recently at ITMA showing what you're doing with Säntis. And I guess when we think about mechanical recycling of cotton, the general understanding is that, you know, there are quality issues. You lose the fiber length. You guys are doing something quite special. Can you talk us through how you've approached this and how you're making a better product?
Well, it's actually really funny. I think my dad just kind of stumbled upon this idea of recycled cotton after he had been recycling polyester for a very long time, and he was in touch with the CEO of PVH at that time, Daniel Grieder, but now he's the CEO of Hugo Boss. They met each other by accident, and Daniel was really compelled by his story where he was talking about recycling polyester for IKEA, and then Daniel challenged him and said, how about recycled cotton, and how about we reach 100% recycled cotton? And my father by background is a textile machine engineer, so he got really excited because he had been dealing with technical solutions for fabrics and yarns for many, many years, and then he was like, yay, I get to go back into, you know, my core enthusiastic or enthusiasm, which is machines. So he ended up solving this problem by basically just building his own machine, as you do. And he took a lot of research and development and looked at all the non-woven machines, which is what is being used to create insulation and carpeting, and those machines are extremely aggressive, and they're the machines that the other recyclers in the industry are using. And what these machines do is that they work with a very high power, and in some cases they wet their fibers, their waste when it goes into the machine, and they basically, through this aggressive process, damage the waste, and then you get really short fiber content, which is not allowing for people to spin more than 20% recycled, for example. The highest that the others in the industry can recycle is 50%. And so we achieved the 100% because my father basically put together his own machine, first a prototype, and now we have a second line. And now we also, like you said, at ITMA, we launched it for sale. We're releasing this machine to other suppliers to be able to use it. We get a longer fiber content, so that means 26 millimeters out of all cotton waste, which is very impressive. And then we can spin it into yarns as fine as any 30s, knits, wovens, that kind of thing. So we've been doing this, and it's been really exciting as a journey, and I've learned a lot along the way, and I think as well brands have learned as well. Other suppliers have learned so much also, and it's really just great to be doing this.
Exactly, and it kind of feels like it's a mechanical cotton recycling 2.0 in a way that is new and fresh and needed.
Yeah.
And again, another segue onto speaking to Dana here about Mara Hoffmann and using some of the outputs from your process. We'd love to hear a little bit about what have been your experiences, the challenges, the benefits. What have you been learning during this process?
Yeah, I think it was, I had to do some research to see when Annabelle had first emailed us, and it was in April of 2020. And this email came in, and it was like a beacon of light in these very dark early days of the pandemic. But in all honesty, when the email came in, I was hesitant to believe it. We had experience with recycled cotton 3 years past we started in 2017. And as Annabelle mentioned, we had a lot of challenges because what we had to do was we had to blend it, and we were blending it with an organic cotton. The quality turned out beautiful, but after the customer had been wearing it, it was pilling. So when this email comes in, I'm like, I don't know. I got to get on the phone with this team and really understand what they're doing. This just feels too good to be true. So in the end of April, we had a call, and it was Annabelle and her father, and having this conversation with them, and them really being super transparent about the process and showing me these videos. And you know, we were in this virtual world. So historically, these meetings would have been taking place in person, and I could have been touching fabrics. And I said to Annabelle, I said, you have to get me a package right away. I need to see this. I need to understand what this feels like, because it still felt too good to be true. I was like, we're going to need certification. We're going to need full transparency in the supply chain. And everything was answered with not a problem. We can provide that. Yes, you've got it. Let's go. We get this package. I get it sent to my home, right? We're all working from home. I see it, and I'm still just like, this is answering all of the things we had been looking for. And what we had really been looking for was a beautiful bottom weight twill fabric that we could put into our core collection. So I immediately cutting up swatches, sending them out to my teams. And a year later, September 2021, we have our PO placed. I mean, that was just how easy it was to work with Säntis. We plugged it into an existing supply chain. So we had already had the supply chain vetted, the material shipped on time, the quality exceeded our expectations. And then it came to being able to communicate this out to the customer. And with Säntis' help, we were able to show videos, which I think the customer really needs to see to understand what goes into making a fully recycled fabric. And it's just been a really phenomenal relationship, and I'm so excited to be able to be here to share it with other brands who are in the room, so that hopefully this is something that they can incorporate in their collections.
That's great to hear, and really positive and good news stories. We like the good news stories. I mean, have there been any downsides or things that we need? Sorry to bring that up, but
No,
that we can learn from as an industry and what's needed to maybe scale this?
I think a big takeaway for us is constantly just being willing to take a risk and answer an email or a call, right? We've got these amazing innovators on the stage, and it's like if a brands aren't committed to working with them and experimenting, how will they scale? And as far as challenges, honestly, in this situation, we didn't really have any challenges. Unfortunately, the fabric had been with one of our suppliers who was damaged in the earthquake in Turkey. So that's been the biggest challenge. And obviously our thoughts are with them and they're rebuilding. And but no, it's just a matter of brands really being willing to jump off and experiment with these new innovative materials that the quality is there. It's so just giving them a try.
That's so fantastic to hear, and it's just all positive. So I'll leave it on that. I won't keep trying to pull something out of that.
I have a list. No,
You wanna-
no, I'm just going to tell Dana I'm hiring more people, so it won't just be me now answering all the emails because I have a backlog of emails all the time. So the time will be there because they're really like a family. And when we met in Colorado after, like, I cold emailed in 2020, it was such a joy to just be around the brands that I work with because it's always me and my father at the forefront, and we never pass it on to 50 other people. Obviously, now we will have to start to expand a little bit on a team, but it's just, I love this holistic kind of relationship that I have with my brands, and that's really how we get everything across properly.
And we're talking a lot about opportunities. I mean, circularity, it is all about opportunity. There's very little on the downside front. And Shailja, I guess from your perspective, it'd be great to understand a bit more about what you've seen over the last couple of years and where you see the industry heading with mechanical and chemical recycling and how quickly we might be able to just make this transition more than a slow one and just ramp it up.
There's been a lot of change in the last couple of years. So I guess just a little bit of background context of, I guess, the genesis of the Circular Fashion Ecosystem Project. As I mentioned, we launched the Institute of Positive Fashion program in February 2020. So a month later, obviously the world changed quite dramatically, and that was enough for us to understand where we needed to double down on our energy, our focus. The British Fashion Council's extremely privileged to be able to convene so many different actors and stakeholders around virtual tables, around actual tables, and really try to get change to happen. So everybody in this room, everybody on this stage, absolutely. So we reflected upon how we could really make a change when it comes to the incredible amount of waste that was very apparent in our global supply chains, held up in distribution centers, the fragility of those supply chains. It just all became super apparent overnight. So that's where we realized that actually emphasizing the move to circularity, really eliminating that waste, circulating products and services as well. How can we help to get businesses up and running to really move to circular business models and use regenerative fibers and looking at it from the whole fashion value chain. So because within our remit we speak to academia, we speak to brands, retailers, and that's really what the Circular Fashion Ecosystem Project does, as the name suggests. Who's in our ecosystem when it comes to circular systems for fashion? What do they need to do? And we outline that as a roadmap for change, we called it, in the report we published in September 2021. And that's really been the basis of our work going forward, just to really drive that, as I mentioned earlier, the wholesale change to circularity. So we really approach it from an industrial transformation perspective, and one cannot be thinking about industrial change without, of course, post-use, the recycling, the collection, the sorting. So we want to be able to get designers. I think Patrick mentioned it on the previous panel. How can designers think about designing for disassembly and for circularity? But actually, could they speak to collectors and sorters and recyclers and understand where their products are failing, and use that as a feedback loop, a data insight, to help them drive change much more holistically? So that's probably going to be a slow burner, but that's the nature of the conversations we can have. But I guess the biggest transformation is where we are seeing much more investment flows coming. Definitely from government. There's been a lot more emphasis on the creative industries, a lot more emphasis on recycling. I'm sure Cyndi can speak about the Circulate and Recycling Demonstrator project. But we're also working with Innovate UK and UK Fashion and Textiles. We're leading on a program of work called the Circular Fashion Innovation Network, out of the Institute of Positive Fashion, partnered with UKFT. And it's a program of change funded by the Innovate UK, which is the R&D arm of the government. And within that program of work, we're just literally kicking off. We've got 6 different pillars, one of which is recycling infrastructure. So that is hugely exciting, because it is a slow but seismic shift that the industry needs.
So I'm conscious of time. We're going through it quite quickly, but I wanted to ask you, as a follow-up to that, do you see has there been a shift in the way? I think traditionally, maybe from a government perspective, the fashion industry is sometimes seen as flippant and creative and just a bunch of designers, rather than hardcore business, commercial, industrial. Do you think there's been a change in that perception in the UK specifically, because that's where you operate?
Yeah, it's a really good question, and that perception change has probably hindered progress for a long time. But definitely there's been a change just by virtue of this announcement in the last few weeks about the investment and the backing to really change the creative industries, recognizing that it is something that affects all of our lives. We're a growing population. We need to clothe ourselves. Digital fashion has definitely got a role to play in that, to displace some actual products, but we really do need actual garments. And how beautiful a solution is circularity, right? It's just so elegant to be able to just keep that value going, and it's all that systems level change, so the government could look to, in future, incentivize change. If businesses are going to be using recyclable, regenerative inputs, move to circular business models, displace their production levels, how can that drive the overall change that we want to see? Because this is an industry. I think in 2019, I'll give a stat from 2019. We've redone the stats, but they're not published yet. But there was 35 billion to UK GDP in 2019, almost 900,000 jobs in the UK. This is a big industry, and that 35 billion is projected to go to under 60 billion just in the next 3 years. So how do we really make sure that we're reducing our negative impacts?
Brilliant. And we have a panel later today on the UK revival in the textile industry. So hopefully you can come and we can talk about that a bit more. Now, to all of you, I want to talk about what's needed, and we have just a little bit of time left to support a circular economic system. And I love the fact that circular economy, it has circular and it has economics in it. And there's a lot that's going to be required to keep materials in circulation in the future. Earlier, we talked about the brand's roles for offtake agreements and committing to outputs from recyclers. I wanted to just get very brief feedback from all of you on what's needed around what we call feedstock, making sure that the textiles, non-rewearable or spent textiles, are kept in the system, and the role of brands there, getting them back to recyclers, getting them back to collectors and sorters. To everyone, whoever wants to jump in.
I'll go in because I've been learning a lot the last few days, and I really well, the last even year I'm becoming more and more conscious of this as well. I've always admired what Mara Hoffmann does. For example, they have a very circular design model already in place since so long, and brands should really take this on. They should have this design approach where they look at fabrics and really select them on the basis of their criteria in circularity already, not just looking at how it looks and it's pretty and let's select this and then it's some weird mix of everything that under the sun. But I also think now that we're moving more into innovation, and what I see now the last few months, there's a lot of great things out there, but you have to remember that there's so much still that we don't know, and some of it is not a monofiber. And I think as a cotton recycler, what I like to say is just stick to the basics, Let's go back to like what you said, we're moving back into a time where we're evolving, but at the same time, we're kind of becoming traditional in a sense where we should look into wearing more 100% linen or 100% cotton, or, even if it's not recycled, if you're selecting as a designer, don't use the blends. That's all I can say. Don't go into the blends direction, Poly cotton, as well as I do. There's things coming for that, but let's just go more in a direction where we, keep it a little bit like don't go crazy anymore, and even if there's innovations out there, there's a lot of debate on what is actually sustainable. And I don't want to go into this because I might get canceled after. But there's so much out there right in front of us. But look at it. Is it plastic in the end? Like what are we actually looking at? And it goes for a lot of the sustainable fibers that are popping up everywhere. It could be a blend of something, and then in the end we can't recycle it. Like it's not recyclable. So I think really we need to go in that direction of focusing on things that are probably more monofiber than rainbow of things.
Absolutely, I understand. From a design perspective, there's all sorts of different routes we can go with designing for circularity. On the collection side, Dana, Eric, any thoughts on getting?
I mean, if I should make it short and describe circularity from our point of view, it's all about collaborations. And I mean, here you have a good example from the finished recycled product on how it goes to the consumer. But to create the circle, it's all about different links that we need to create all over the industry. We have skills in Down, but we collaborate with different other companies to recycle the other components. But that's also is valid for brands who don't have especially skills nowadays on how to collect from the post-consumers, or from the consumers, sorry, for their post-consumer waste. But we see that we do quite a lot of projects right now with chain stores, but they are debating, okay, shall we really put a trash can in the sell zone? When you sell duvets, do you really want to have there a place where to donate your old duvets? How do you educate the consumers to bring back this to a store? They have to carry it and so on. So there is actually a lot to do with different actors in that supply chain to educate customers to separate the goods once they have been collected, and then to recycle all the different components. For us, it's really a matter of collaboration, and that's also what's interesting here, to find new partners for our projects.
And it's always so hard. There's so many topics. We've got 5 minutes left. I want to get some questions and answers in, but there's just so many different aspects of circularity. We can't cover it all. There's the social side, the people side. Before we go into final comments, are there any questions out in the audience or comments that you'd like to make to what you've heard today? Do you just want to hear more talking? Oh, here we go. Please.
Run.
Yeah, a really interesting talk, and I really like the ideas of monomateriality and designing for disassembly at the end of life. But how do you factor something like that in when you're dealing with a really complicated product, like say a bra or say a heavyweight jacket made for something like skiing?
Who wants to take that?
Free the nipple.
Annabelle's
wear
going to
bras.
talk about the bra, I talk about the ski jacket. Is that okay?
No, Eric wants to talk about the bras.
No, but the ski jacket is a really good example. This is what we are actually, the challenges we are hitting. And we started the journey in Europe, and we collected first duvets and pillows. Pretty easy. 2 components, cotton shells, down and feather filling. But now, as we are recycling more and more down jackets, we see the problem of all the multi-component that Annabelle mentioned. Even if the fabric itself is not a kind of intimate mix of different materials, they are stitched together. And that, again, for us, the answer is the collaboration. We have actually sent one of our disassembling machine to a French startup company called Iterative. That is, so we extract the down mechanically from the jacket, and then they take care of the fabric waste to separate them chemically, mechanically, etc., in the best way to prepare it for the future. But let's be honest, at this stage, we have only solutions for a small fraction of these goods. All the rest, we are still working with other people for new technologies to get there.
How about the bra?
I was going to say, how about the bra? No, but for example, an example comes to mind. There was a denim mill that made a ski jacket out of denim, for example, and that could be recycled cotton. And they tested it, and she went to Stade. It's actually it's really funny. She went skiing with it, and it was working. It's actually Perfect Moment. It's a UK ski wear brand. So it's just an example. Like even for the bra, we work with Triumph, we work with Kalida, trying to incorporate at least our recycled cotton into the cotton mix. But we're also teaching at the same time. Like I get to teach the designers, which I'm really happy to do, is to basically get them to use more recycled cotton and not blends, and maybe design new types of bras that, 100 years ago, there were different types of bras. We don't wear them anymore. And then in the next 100 years, they might be monomaterial, or we just don't wear them. I don't know. Like, it's that.
Skiing
cool.
and bras go together. Any other questions? It's looking good. We'll have more time for closing comments. Dana, thanks for joining us here online. Do you have any final points you'd like to share with the audience on the topic of recycling?
Yeah, I think even just thinking of the question of the bra, we make swimwear. I think at this point, we're all just trying to make the best decisions, right? Make products ultimately that last a really long time so that we don't have to think about end of use, end of life. But from a design perspective and a brand perspective, we talked a little bit about the collaboration. Collaboration is key, finding the right innovators and suppliers to work with so that they understand the challenges that you're having and that you can sit down together and think of those solutions. And really study what are all of the components within those garments. When we talk about these monomaterials, right? We talk about, when we think of the thread, the interlinings, the pocket bags, all of those things, so that when you are ready to recycle those materials, that they can easily be recycled or disassembled. But don't give up, and really keep thinking about ways of partnering and collaborating with the innovators who are in the room there.
Thanks, Dana. Thanks so much. We have maybe one word each. One line.
One line.
What would you like to see next?
I think everything that everyone has said, the collaboration is key. I think it's also worth bearing in mind, this is going to be more than one line, sorry, that just think about the S in the ESG as well. We're doing, I think, especially from an investment perspective, if for those innovators here, I think investors really, there is that sea change happening where investors are looking for innovators, brands, companies that are going to be considering the social aspects as well. So regardless of what your industry is or what part of the sector you work in, just think about the societal aspects of the work you do in the recycling game.
Thank you. Eric?
No, I would say with all, I mean, what we started to touch today, we see that we are only at the beginning of this journey, you know. I mean, we are now in business for 8 years, but we see how much more we have to do. If I give you the example of down 2021, the world production of down in total was about 500,000 tons, and only 1% of that was GRS recycled down certified. So we have another 99% to go.
And yeah, same with recycled textiles back into textiles. It's less than 1%. So we do have a long way to go, but we're well on the way. Annabelle, one final thought.
Last words. I was at an Extinction Rebellion panel in Zurich, and I told everyone to just have fun. Don't take it too seriously. You know, sustainability, it should be embedded in us. I always believe this. You know, my father just set out to build a machine, not because he was like, I have to become the next circular warrior in the industry, just because he was like, cool, this is a challenge. I'm going to find a solution and you know, define your own sustainable journey. You know, that's what brands like Mara Hoffmann do. It makes it really easy to then collaborate. And like yesterday, the Gen Z panel, they touched on familiarity and bringing a personal aspect to the industry. And I think that's really key as well. And it makes everything more fun. So
have fun is a really good final message. So thank you to our panel. Thank you to everyone who joined today. And let's keep the conversation going.
Thank you.
Nice. Good stuff.
Yeah.